This is my second video about how to teach a lunge. It is making it a YouTube friendly format so I can have it as a resource for my personal training students. But basically, I'm going to just go over how to teach a lunge from scratch, okay? So just like a squat and a deadlift, or a squat and a hinge, the lunge, I start the lunge from the floor. Now, what is the difference between a lunge and a squat? Let's go over that quickly. A squat is an up and down movement, right? Whether it's on 2 feet like that, or in a split position, or in a longer split where the back foot moves, I call those all a squat. I'm squatting on this front leg. Now a lunge is a step and return to a position, right? So I can step and return. I can step and return. I can even step and return, right? A gait pattern is a lunge, for example. Now, just like the squat and deadlift, I start teaching these on the floor. And the reason is, I want to be able to learn how to coordinate the movement of the head and the hips, right? I want them to move together so everything in between stays rather stable or neutral, as is often called. So, we getting from there. My go-to movement to start this kind of thing, when I get my head out of the sun, is the glute bridge, or the bridge, right? The bridge teaches my rib cage and my hips to move as one. So obviously, if I'm doing a lunge, I need to get that 2-foot bridge down before I do squats and deadlifts. But if I'm doing a lunge, now I start moving to 1-foot bridge variation. So I start with the bridge march. But before march, I do a toe off. If I can't do a toe off without the opposite hip reacting, I am not ready to do lunges, right? Obviously both sides, up and down. I can't remove completely without that opposite hip reacting. I am not ready to do lunges. And when I say reacting, I mean moving. The relationship between the hip and the rib cage should not change as I toe off and lift that knee. Okay, this stayed the same. So that's the first thing I'll teach somebody. And as I mentioned before, I like to teach movement through movement, right? So we start with very basic movements. The first would be that taking the heel off, or that toe off as I call it, taking the heel off the floor, making sure the hip doesn't react before I lead to more complex movements. Here is another way of doing it, also using the stability from the floor, and it's using this is a way to get more of a range of motion of it, right? Using the quad rock. So I've mentioned in the past, I like to teach squats, but the spinal position of the squats and the deep hip flexion and deep knee flexion by doing quad rocking. Going from a plank position to a deep quadruped sit, right? Keeping that head and the hips moving together as one. So to work on the lunge, you can get up on your toes and step back. And again, I have that hip flexion, knee flexion, ankle dorsiflexion. I work on having all the toes active here, all the toes active back there, which means all the toes are working. And that starts helping me create that stability in the lunge position in a obviously much more stable, much easier place to do it. My hands on the floor, right? Obviously we can do both sides, we can alternate between sides. And I'm looking for a straight line from my head really to my heel, but definitely from my head to my hips, I want that nice stable position. And I want to be able to keep my feet straight and use all my toes to do the lunge. That knee-foot alignment is crucial during the squat. It's really crucial during the lunge because we're doing a one-leg balance thing, right? Definitely when you go into one-leg squats, it'd be the same thing, or one-leg deadlifts. So once I got that, and let's go back a second. When we stand, I talk about the tripod foot, right? About having even load on your big toe, your little toe, and your heel, right? 25 up front, 50% on the back. Right? So it's 50-50 front and back, even side to side. So it would be the same thing here. I want that pinky toe to be as involved as a big toe in both feet, as loaded. And when I say involved, it means loaded, as stretched. You put just as much weight on it. So the muscles that you're loading, that you're stretching, know that they need to contract. A muscle that does not get stretched doesn't know it needs to contract. So then, once we got that, then we can stand. Okay. There's other ways. Actually, before we stand, right? Let's talk about the standing procedure, because you can look at lunge as part of the standing procedure. And coming up from this half kneeling, we've talked about coming from that seated kneeling to tall kneeling. That's a hip hinge. So also kind of a squat, right? But we can work from that into a lunge, driving the leg forward into this half kneeling position. And that's teaching me that fact of the part of the lunge, which means that the back hip has to push me forward, right? The back hip, the one that stays behind, is in charge of stabilizing while this foot is in the air. And if this is not controlled, this glute's not contracted, my abs are not contracted, then I'm not going to be able to land correctly on that front foot. And that's a part of the gait cycle of walking and running as well. So anyhow, once the floor groundwork is laid, right? No pun intended, the groundwork is laid, then we can stand. Now, there's two rabbits to chase here with the lunge, right? There is the depth rabbit and the length rabbit, right? And we can change theirs separately or at the same time. Now, often people go for the depth rabbit first. And if you're going for the depth rabbit first, it makes sense to start with the split squat variations, right? It makes sense to try to do a staggered squat first, or a longer split squat first, or what's called a reverse lunge. And all those variations can be helped, just like the squat, with some assistance, right? And again, let's go back to the key points. On all these squats, lunges, deadlifts, hip hinges, tripod of the foot, even weight, pinky toe, big toe, and heel, right? Weights in the middle, and head and hip move together, right? So, what can I use as assistance? In our barbell to couch to barbell program, I taught you how to use a barbell for assistance, a little standard bar. So obviously I can put some weight on this and squat on it, or step back on it, go into a lunge position, right? To use this as a third leg, basically, right? I have most of the weights on this one, obviously, but I have a kickstand here and a kickstand back there. Third leg, more stable position, okay? Now, obviously, I could use a TRX, a suspension trainer, hold on to it. I can use a door handle and hold on to it, like doorknob. That works too. I actually set up my TRX, but I'm not gonna bring it into the picture. The point is, holding onto something makes that reverse lunge easier. Now, let's say we don't have anything to hold on to. We have to think about the fact that the lunge doesn't have to be all the way down till my knee brushes the floor. I don't like the knee hitting the floor, but if you have hairy knees, the hair of your knees should touch the floor. If you're wearing baggy pants, your pants should touch the floor. That's ideal, right? But what I want is, we have to remember is that anytime we step forward and we come back, it's a lunge. So that's a lunge, right? That's a lunge. That's a lunge. Obviously we can go in a different direction. Across, it's a lunge, okay? It doesn't have to be long and deep. It can be, but we can work up to that. So if you don't want to hold on to anything, or you have nothing to hold on to, which would be weird because we can even use the wall, right? Especially if we're doing that traveling lunge. Use the wall for balance. We can work on shallow lunges and short lunges and gradually increase the length and depth of the lunge, right? We have length, depth, and direction when we're talking about lunges that we can work on. But again, the keys are weight balance on the foot and the head and hip move together. If knee flexion is an issue, right? If your knee's hurting or you just have some issue with the knee, your glute is not really kicking in, your knee's kind of wobbly. Just like with squats, sometimes deep squats are problematic on the knees, and when I get a knee injury or my knees get mad at me, sometimes the same thing happens. But hip hinges or not, because it requires a lot less knee flexion. There's nothing wrong with doing a lunge into a hip hinge, right? What's normally called a reach lunge. This is a lunge you use to pick something up from the floor, right? You can lower it with dumbbells or whatever, right? Lunges don't have to be squatty. They can be hingy. It's still a lunge. You're still stepping and coming back. So that's another option that you can use. So to recap, start from the floor. Make sure you can control the movement of the hips and rib cage first, and then as you stand or you kneel, right, you include the head. So everything between the head and the hips moves as one. Second, balance on the feet, and that starts from when you're here, right? When I'm here, the balance is between the toes and the heel, the pinky and big toe. When I come to this, or this one, there's balance between the pinky and big toe side of the feet on both sides. And my head and my hips are moving as one. When I start working on this, as I drive forward, I am landing on my full foot. And I could definitely come to here. I could do it like this from both toes and push to my toes in the back too. That'd probably be better. Finally, talking about pushing through my toes in the back. One of the key points. If I would have to do the video again if I forgot this one. Don't forget about the back foot. The back foot's part of the lunge. It drives you forward. Don't tell people to lunge by stepping forward. That's just as bad as running, like walking by stepping forward, right? And so you run it and you land, you overstride, you land with a stiff leg and a hard heel strike. It's normally considered a bad thing, right? You want to land on top of your foot, whether you are a heel striking proponent or a force foot striking proponent or a mid foot, I don't care. But you want to land on top. Nobody argues that. You want to land on top. So same thing with walking. You want to land on top, not behind your foot. You don't want that boom, boom, right? So how do you land on top? You land on top by focusing on what's happening on the back foot. The back foot has to roll over the toes. That's one of the reasons why training that straight foot squat position is important, right? Yes, a lot of people can squat deeper and heavier by toeing out, but if you train that straight foot squat position, it transfers to gait, transfers to lunges, and you can roll over that back foot drives you forward, and that creates a contraction in that glute, creates stability in the transverse plane, rotational stability, that would allow that front leg to absorb that impact. It happens also when you go sideways. I drive this way to land correctly on this and this way, on this side, right? Use that back foot driver intentionally. Roll through our foot and intentionally use it to stabilize what's happening in the front leg. Don't just think that this is just hanging out. Because then you see this stuff. And then you see people step out like this. And if somebody does a lunge like this, you know that's how they walk, right? They walk like, right? With feet turned out, and then, you know, they wonder why they have knee pain. I mean, I have knee pain, I walk with straight feet, but, you know, we can do what we can to avoid things, we do, right? And if you want to debate, you know, alignment and posture and knee pain and whatnot, maybe I'll be happy to. Depends on what mood I am in. I mean, but some other people really like to debate that stuff. The point is, use the back foot, please. And if you don't want to use the back foot, you don't want to follow my advice, just, you know, don't watch my videos. I think that's it for the lunge. That's how I teach a lunge.